Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our special Bookaccino Live Spring Preview Evening program. We're going to be talking about books that are coming out starting next Tuesday through June 17th because summer begins on the 20th, and we'll be talking about the other books later on in our summer evening presentation. Got a lot of books to get through tonight, so I am going to get started. And if you want to, those who are here live, if you could jump into the chat and tell us who you are, where you're from. After this, we like to see how many states have been represented. And if you want to share what you're reading, we always love seeing that. So with no further ado, let me move to the next slide. We're going to start with fiction tonight. And the first book is Tilt by Emma Patty. It is coming on March 25th. Annie is 9 months pregnant and shopping for a crib at IKEA when a massive earthquake hits Portland, Oregon. With no way to reach her husband, no phone or money, this sounds like a terrible situation, and a city left in chaos, there's nothing to do but walk. So she's 9 months pregnant, folks, walking. Making her way across the wreckage of Portland, Annie experiences human desperation and kindness, strangers offering help, a riot at a grocery store, and an unlikely friendship with a young mother. As she walks, Annie reflects on her struggling marriage, her disappointing career, and her anxiety about having a baby. If she can just make it home, she's determined to change her life. So this is a big walk for her. Jessica Knoll says every gorgeous page pulses with humor, heartbreak, and the horror of human behavior. A smashing debut. And it's April's #1 indie pick. Next, we've got Twist by Colin McCann, also coming out next Tuesday. Anthony Fennell, an Irish journalist and playwright, is assigned to cover the underwater cables that carry the world's information. How often do we think about these? Like never. The sum of human existence, words, images, transactions, memes, voices, viruses, travel through the tiny fiber optic tubes. Sometimes the tubes break at an unfathomable depth. Fennell's journey brings him to the west coast of Africa, where he uncovers a story about the raw human labor behind the dazzling veneer of the technological world. He meets a fellow Irishman, the mysterious John Conway, who is a skilled engineer and a freediver capable of reaching extraordinary depths. When the ship is sent up the coast to repair a series of major underwater breaks, both men learn that the very cables they seek to fix carry the news that may cause their lives to unravel. So he was the author of the Let the Great World Spin. So it's nice to see another book from him. And I have to say, I very rarely think about those cables. So there you go. Next up, we've got Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, which is coming on April 1st. There's no such thing as a perfect guy, but Xavier Rush comes disastrously close. A gorgeous veterinarian giving Greek god vibes, all the while cuddling a tiny kitten? Immediate yes. That is until Xavier opens his mouth, proving that even sculpted, oh, a second, hold on a second, even some, I'm sorry, endless sculpted gods can say the absolute wrong thing. Of course, there's nothing Samantha loves more than proving someone like him wrong, unless, of course, he can prove he made a mistake. But after one incredible and seemingly endless date, Samantha is forced to admit the truth. Their family's in crisis, and any kind of relationship would be impossible. Samantha begs Xavier to forget her, to remember their night together as a perfect moment, as crushing as that may be. Only no amount of distance or time is enough to forget what's between them. So there you've got Abby Jimenez. And Emily Henry says no one does funny, emotional, life-affirming love stories quite like Abby Jimenez. Next up, just going to check one thing real quickly. Hold on. So make sure this is recording. These moments that, Tom, can you see if it is?
It's recording.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll have to edit that too. We've got The World's Fair Quilt by Jennifer Chiavarini, and this is coming on April 1st. Sylvia Bergstrom Compson is contemplating the future of her beloved Elm Creek quilts. The Elm Creek Quilt Camp remains the most popular quilters' retreat in the country, but unexpected financial difficulties have beset them, and the Bergstrom family's stately 19th century manor. Summer Sullivan, a founding Elm Creek quilter, arrives to discuss an antique quilt that she wants to display at the Waterford Historical Society's quilt exhibit. When Sylvia and her sister Claudia were teenagers, they had entered a quilt in the Sears National Quilt Contest for the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. Summer believes that their quilt would be perfect for the Historical Society's exhibit. Sylvia is hesitant to lend out the quilt, which has been stored in the attic for decades. As she retraces the quilt's story for Summer, she makes an unexpected discovery, one that restores some of her faith in this unique work of art and helps shine some light on a way forward for the Elm Creek quilts community. So there you've got. That's something I've never done is quilting. Done a lot of crafts, but not that. Next, we've got The Float Test by Lynn Steger Strong. It's coming on April 8th. The Kenner siblings are at odds. Jen is a harried mom struggling under the weight of family obligations. Fred is a novelist who can't write, maybe because she's lost faith in the storytelling itself. Jude is a recovering corporate lawyer, with her own story to tell, and a grudge against her former favorite sister, Fred. George is the baby, is estranged from his wife, and harboring both a secret about his former employer and an ill-conceived crush on one of his sister's friends. Gathered after a major loss, each sibling needs the other more than ever. If only they could trust each other. So there you've got The Float Test by the author of Flight. Next, Jennifer Weiner's got a new publisher and a new book. The Griffin Sisters' Greatest Hits is coming on April 8th. Sisters Kathy and Zoe Grossberg were born just a year apart, but could not have been more different. Zoe yearned for fame from the moment she could sing into a hairbrush. How many people have done that? I have. Cassie was a musical prodigy who never left home in her own skin and preferred the safety of the shadows. On the brink of adulthood in the early 2000s, Destiny intervened, catapulting the sisters into the spotlight as pop sensation The Griffin Sisters. But after a whirlwind year in the public eye, the band abruptly broke up. 2 decades later, Zoe's a housewife and Cassie's kind of off the grid. Sisters aren't speaking, and the real reason for the Griffin sisters' breakup is still a mystery. Zoe's teenage daughter, Cherry, who's determined to be a star in spite of Zoe's warnings, is on a quest to learn the truth of what happened to the band all those years ago. So they are the Griffin sisters' greatest hits. Next, we've got The Page Turner from Viola Shipman, coming also on April 8th. Emily Page grew up the black sheep in a bookish household, raised to believe that fine literature is the only worthy type of fiction. Her parents, self-proclaimed serious authors, folks, who run their own vanity press. The mighty Pages mingle in highbrow social circles that look down on anything too popular or too mainstream. Her sister Jess is a powerful social media influencer whose stylish reviews can make or break a novel. Hiding her own romance manuscript from her disapproving parents, Emma finds inspiration at the family cottage among the fluff that they despise, the juicy summer romances that belong to her late grandmother. But a chance of discovery, unearthed from her Gigi's belongings, reveals a secret that has the power to ruin her parents' business and destroy their reputation in the industry. A secret that has already fallen into the hands of an unscrupulous publishing insider with a grudge to settle. Started reading this one over the weekend. There's a little insider stories about what's going on in publishing. And you just, like, if you enjoy the world of publishing, this is one you're not going to want to miss. And I love that she's so different from her parents. Next, we've got Great Big Beautiful Lie by Emily Henry, which is on sale on April 22nd. She's the author of Funny Story, in case anybody doesn't know Emily's name. Alice Scott is an eternal optimist, still dreaming of her big writing break. Hayden Anderson is a Pulitzer Prize winning human thundercloud, and they're both on balmy Little Crescent Island for the same reason, to write the biography of a woman no one has seen in years, or at least meet with the octogenarian who claims to be the Margaret Ives, tragic heiress, former tabloid princess, and the daughter of one of the most storied and scandalous families of the 20th century. Margaret involves them both for a 1-month trial period, after which she will choose the person who will tell her story. But the problem is, Margaret's only given them each pieces of her story, pieces they can't swap to put together because of an ironclad NDA, and an inconvenient yearning pulsing between them every time they're in the same room. So there we've got Great Big Beautiful Life. Is it really, or who knows what? Next from Frederick Bachman. Oh, you all know Frederick Bachman, and you're waiting for a book from him on May 6th. Most people don't even notice them. Three tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of the sea. But to Louisa, an inspiring artist herself, knows otherwise. And she's determined to find out the story of these three enigmatic figures. 25 years earlier, in a distant seaside town, a group of teenagers found refuge from their bruising home lives by spending long summer days on an abandoned pier, telling silly jokes, sharing secrets, and committing small acts of rebellion. Out of that summer emerged a transcendent work of art, a painting that unexpectedly will be placed into 18-year-old Louise's care. She embarks on a surprise cross-country journey to learn how the painting came to be and to decide what to do with it. So there you go. We're on an adventure with her. Next, we've got The River is Waiting by Raleigh Lamb coming on May 6th. Corby Ledbetter is struggling. New fatherhood, the loss of his job, and a growing secret addiction have thrown his marriage to his beloved Emily into a tailspin. And that's before he causes the tragedy that tears his family apart. Sentenced to prison, Colby struggles to survive life on the inside, where he bears witness to frightful acts of brutality, but also experiences small acts of kindness, an elemental kinship with prison librarian who sees his light and some of his fellow offenders, including a tender-hearted cellmate and a troubled teen desperate for a role model. Buoyed by them and by his mother's enduring love, faith in him, Corby begins to transcend the boundaries of his confinement, sustained by his hope that mercy and reconciliation might still be possible. Can his crimes ever be forgiven by those he loves? Andre Dubus said, I could not put this novel down and predict you won't be able to either. I also, if many of you know, while we spent a lot of time working with students, with people in prison, with their writing, helping them become better writers. So he's got some, real knowledge of what happens on the inside. Next, we've got The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Wong, and it is coming on May 13th. One late summer evening in a post-industrial town of East Gladness, Connecticut, 19-year-old High stands on the edge of a bridge in pelting rain, ready to jump, when he hears someone shout across the river. The voice belongs to Grazina, an elderly widow succumbing to dementia, who convinces him to take another path. Bereft and out of options, he quickly becomes her caretaker. Over the course of the year, the unlikely pair develops a life-altering bond, one built on empathy, spiritual reckoning, and heartbreak, with the power to transform High's relationship to himself, his family, and the community on the brink. There's the Emperor of Gladness. And you know him as the author of On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Next, we've got from Kevin Wilson, Run for the Hills. And you know him for the book Nothing to See Here. This one's coming on May 13th. Ever since her dad left them 20 years ago, it's just been Madeline Hill and her mom on their farm in Coalfield, Tennessee. It's a bit lonely and a less exciting life than what she imagined for herself. It's mostly okay. Then one day, Reuben Hill pulls up in a PT Cruiser and informs Madeline that he believes she is his half-sister, Reuben. Half-sister. Reuben, who was left behind by their dad 30 years ago, has hired a detective to track down their father and a string of other half-siblings. And he wants Madeline to leave her home and join him for the craziest kind of road trip imaginable to find them all. As Madeline and Reuben, and eventually others, share stories of their father, who behaved so differently in each life he created, they begin to question what he was looking for with each new incarnation. So we've got Run for the Hills. How many people are going to be in that car trying to track down the dad? Next, we've got Speak to Me of Home by Janine Cummins, and you know her, as the #1 best-selling author of American Dirt. This is coming on May 13th. On her wedding day in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in 1968, Rafaela Acuna y Debon has mild misgivings, but she marries Peter Brennan Jr. anyway, in a blaze of romantic optimism. She has no way of knowing how dramatically her life will change when she uproots her young family to start over in the American Midwest, unleashing a fleet of disappointments. In the 1980s, against a backdrop of her mother's isolation in St. Louis, Missouri, Rafaela's daughter Ruth only wants to belong. Eager to fit in, Ruth lets go of her language, her habits, and childhood memories of Puerto Rico. It's not until decades later, when Ruth's own daughter Daisy returns to San Juan, that her mother and grandmother begin to truly reflect on the choices that have come to define their lives. There we got Speak to Me of Home. I haven't read this one yet, but I'm dying to get a copy of it. Next, from Catherine Center, we've got The Love Haters, coming on May 20th. Katie Vaughn has been burned by love in the past. Now she may be lighting her career on fire. She has two choices: wait to get laid off from her job as a video producer, or, as her coworker Cole's request, take a career-making gig profiling Tom Hutchison, a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in Key West. The catch? Katie's not exactly qualified. She can't swim, but pretends she can. Plus, Cole and Hutch are brothers, and they don't get along. As Katie gets entangled with Hutch, the most scientifically good-looking man she has ever seen, but maybe a bit of a love hater, along with his colorful Aunt Rue and his rescue Great Dane, she gets trapped in a lie, or two. Swim lessons, helicopter flights, conga limes, drinking contests, hurricanes, and stolen kisses ensue, along with chances to learn to tell the truth, face old fears, and truly be brave at last. We've got the love haters. Next, we've got Beach House Rules from Christy Woodson Harvey. Shelby Van Pelt said Beach House Rules will rule the beach this beach read season, coming on May 27th. When Charlotte Sitterly's husband is arrested for a white-collar crime, she and her daughter Iris are locked out of their house by the FBI and thrust into the spotlight at Juniper Shores Socialite, the town's snarky, anonymous Instagram account. Cut off from her bank accounts and feeling desperate, Charlotte takes up an acquaintance's offer to stay at the beachfront former bed and bath and breakfast at the home to a community of single mothers, and draws plenty of gossip in the small coastal North Carolina town. Charlotte and Iris find solace and are surprised by how much fun they're having with one another's families, despite their circumstances. But when the women discover a secret link between them, changes everything they thought they knew about the unconventional family they've created, and leaves them to wondering if their coming together was really a coincidence at all. So there you've got Beach House Rules. Next, we've got Mansion Beach, coming from Meg Mitchell Moore, also on May 27th. It's the beginning of the summer, and Nicole Carr has just arrived on Block Island, Rhode Island, eager for a fresh start and some R&R. Are you noticing a pattern here that people go to the beach for a fresh start and some R&R, and they think that something's going to happen, and that's not what happened? If you're listening, you're grasping this fact. But her plans for a tranquil summer are derailed as the extravagant parties from the grand house next door pique her curiosity. She soon discovers that the home belongs to Juliana George, an enigmatic entrepreneur with a past shrouded in mystery. Juliana George, CEO and founder of a hot fashion tech company, is at the top of her game. She's spending the summer on Block Island preparing for a major IPO, but she's chasing her dreams in more ways than one. This summer, she hopes to rekindle a flame with a man from her past, a man who has a surprising connection to her neighbor, Nicola. So there you go. She's the author of Summer Stage that came out a couple of years ago. Next, we've got Atmosphere from Taylor Jenkins Reid. One friend, the publisher, that's telling me that this is her favorite book. Francesca, who works with us, read this last week and was just raving about it. So what have we got coming from Taylor on June 3rd? Joan Goodwin is content with her life as a professor of physics and astronomy at Rice University and as an aunt to her precocious niece, Frances. That is until she comes across an advertisement seeking the first women scientists to join NASA's Space Shuttle program. Suddenly, Joan burns to be one of the few people to go into space. Selected from a pool of thousands of applicants in the summer of 1980, Joan begins training at Houston's Johnson Space Center, along with an exceptional group of fellow candidates. As the new astronauts become unlikely friends and prepare for their first flights, Joan finds a passion and a love she never imagined. In this new life, she begins to question everything she thinks she knows about her place in the observable universe. And then, in December 1984, on mission STS-LR9, it all changes in an instant. So there's Atmosphere. And you know her. She wrote Daisy Joan and the Six, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Big writer. Okay. Next up, we've got Just Beachy by Wendy Wax. And she is the USA Today bestselling author of Best Beach Ever. Wendy hasn't written for a couple of years, and we're so glad to have her back because she just writes really fun books. After losing her longtime acting gig on the hit show Murder 101, Sydney Ryan decides she needs a break from Hollywood politics. She heads to Treasure Island, Florida, where her grandmother has been visiting and now refuses to leave. But Sydney's plan to lie low for a bit quickly goes awry as she's swept up in her grandmother's now flourishing, busy social life. Grant is helping her neighbor Myra open a bookstore at Paso Grill. But when someone breaks into Grant's house repeatedly, Sydney realizes that her grandmother is keeping something from her. Determined to ferret out the truth and protect her grandmother, Sydney enlists the help of the 10 Beach Road ladies. Yes, those are the other books that Wendy wrote, was a whole series, 10 Beach Road. And Luke, a local police officer who was once her high school crush. See, what happens when you go back is you get to see the people you knew in high school. While Sydney puts her television crime-solving skills to the test, she decides on acting on the sizzling chemistry between herself and Luke. So you go back and you get chemistry, the guy you left, how to go to California. Ha. Next, we've got Finding Grace by Loretta Rothschild, which is also coming on June 10th. Honor seems to have everything. She adores her bright and beautiful daughter, Chloe, and her charming, handsome husband, Tom, even if he works 100 hours a week. Yet Honor's longing for another baby threatens to eclipse all of it until a shocking event changes their lives forever. Years later, Tom makes a decision that ripples through their family's lives in ways he never could have foreseen. As a consequence of that fateful choice unfold, two women's paths become irrevocably intertwined. But when the old clashes with the new, who will be left standing? And what happens when your secrets come back to haunt you? There's a theme going on. Secrets coming back to haunt you, go back to the old town. No, 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 not a thing to do. Next, we've got So Far Gone by Jess Walter, and you know him as the New York Times bestselling author of Beautiful Ruins. It's coming on June 10th. Rise Kinnick has gone off the grid. At Thanksgiving a couple of years back, a fed-up Rise punched his conspiracy theorist son-in-law in the mouth, chucked his smartphone out a car window, and fled for a cabin in the woods with no one around except a pack of very hungry raccoons. Now, in his old life, is about to land right back in his crumbling doorstep. Can this failed husband and father, a man with no internet, heart that barely runs, reemerge into a broken world to track down his missing daughter and save his sweet, precocious grandchildren from the members of a dangerous militia? The help of his caustic ex-girlfriend, bipolar retired detective, and his only friend, who happens to be furious with him. He's on a wild journey through cultural lunacy and the rubble of life he thought he'd left behind. Behind. We should have done that as a word, Tom. Left behind. Next, let's do some historical fiction, thinking of leaving behind. I'll start with The River Knows Your Name by Kelly Mustian. It's coming on April 1st. For nearly 30 years, Nell has kept a childhood promise to never reveal what she and Evie found tucked inside a copy of Jane Eyre in their mother's bookcase. A record of Evie's birth, naming a stranger as her mother. But lately, Nell has been haunted by hazy memories of their early life in Mississippi, which their reclusive mother, Hazel, keeps shrouded in mystery. Evie recalls nothing before their house on Clay Mountain in North Carolina, but Nell remembers abrupt moves, odd accommodations, and the rainy night a man in a dark coat and a hat pulled low climbed their porch steps with a very little girl, Evie, and then left without her. In dual story times, Nell, who is 42 in 1971, reaches into the past to uncover dangerous, long-buried secrets, and Becca, a young mother in the early 30s, presses ahead, each moving towards 1934, the catastrophic year that would forever link them. There, The River Knows Your Name. Next, we've got The Sirens by Amelia Hart. It's April's top library reads pick. It's coming on April 1st. Lucy awakens from a dream to find her hands around her ex-lover's throat. That's cool. Horrified, she flees to her older sister's house on the Australian coast, hoping she can help explain the strangely vivid nightmare that preceded the attack. But Jess is nowhere to be found. As Lucy awaits her return, the rumors surrounding Jess's strange small town start to emerge. Numerous men have gone missing at sea, spread over decades. A tiny baby was found hidden in a cave, and sailors tell of hearing women's voices on the waves. Desperate for answers, Lucy finds and begins to read her sister's adolescent diary. The breathtaking tale of female resistance and bonds of sisterhood across time and space, The Sirens captures the power of dreams and the mystery and magic of the sea. This is going to be one of our spring reading giveaway books, so make sure you keep an eye on the site. to see when the contest is going to go up so you can enter to win one of the copies, one of 5 copies. Next, we've got 6 Days in Bombay by Alka Joshi, which is coming on April 15th. When renowned painter Mira Novak arrives at Wadia Eye Hospital in Bombay after a miscarriage, she's expected to make a quick recovery, and her nurse Sona is excited to learn more about the vivacious artist who shares her half-Indian identity. Sona, yearning for a larger life, finds herself carried away by Mira's stories of her travels and exploits, and is shocked by accounts of the many lovers the painter has left scattered throughout Europe. Mira dies quite suddenly and mysteriously. Sona falls under suspicion, and her quiet life is upended. The key to proving Sona's innocence may lie in a cryptic note and 4 paintings Mira left in her care, sending the young woman on a mission to visit the painter's former friends and lovers across a tumultuous Europe teetering towards war. On the precipice of discovery of her own identity, Sona learns the painter's charming facade hid a far more complicated, troubled soul. And you know her as the author of The Henna Artist. Next, we've got The Lilac People from Milo Todd, which is coming on April 29th. In 1932, a trans man named Bertie and his friends spend carefree nights at the El Dorado Club, the epicenter of Berlin's thriving queer community. An employee of the renowned Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld at the Institute of Sexual Science, Bertie works to improve queer rights in Germany and beyond. But everything changes when Hitler rises to power. The Institute is raided, the El Dorado is shuttered, and queer people are rounded up. Bertie barely escapes with his girlfriend Sophie to a nearby farm, and there they take on the identities of an elderly couple and live for more than a decade in isolation. The final days of the war, Bertie and Sophie find a young trans man collapsed on their property, still dressed in Holocaust prison clothes. They vow to protect him, not from the Nazis, but from the Allied forces who are arresting queer prisoners while liberating the rest of the country. Part of history I did not know about, so here's the Lilac People to tell that story. Milo. Next is My Name is Amelia de Valle by Isabel Allende. It's coming on May 6th. San Francisco in 1866, an Irish nun abandoned following a torrid relationship with a Chilean aristocrat gives birth to a daughter named Amelia de Valle. Raised by a loving stepfather, Amelia grows into an independent thinker and a self-sufficient young woman. To pursue her passion for writing, she's willing to defy societal norms. At the age of 17, she begins to publish pulp fiction using a man's pen name. These fictional works can no longer satisfy her sense of adventure. She turns to journalism, convincing an editor at the Daily Examiner to hire her. There she's paired with another talented reporter, Eric Whalen. As Amelia proves herself, her restlessness returns until an opportunity arises to cover a brewing civil war in Chile. She seizes it, as does Eric, and while there, she meets her estranged father and delves into the violent confrontation in the country where her roots are. And we all know her as the New York Times bestselling author of The House of the Spirits. Next, Mary Alice Monroe has Where the Rivers Merge. It's coming on May 13th. 1908, the low country of South Carolina is at a cusp of change. Mayfield, the grand estate held for generations by the Rivers family, is the treasured home of young Eliza. A free spirit, she refused to be consigned by societal norms and spends her days exploring the vast property, observing wildlife and riding horses. But the Great War, coastal storms, and family turmoil bring unexpected challenges to Eliza, putting her on a collision course with the patriarchal traditions of a bygone era. Let's flash to 1988, when at 88, Eliza, the scion of the Rivers Delancey family, she fought a lifetime to save her beloved Mayfield and is too independent and committed to quietly retire and leave the fate of the estate to her greedy son. She must make decisions that will assure the future of the land and her family, or watch them both be split apart. There you've got Mary Alice's latest. Next, we've got The Girls of Good Fortune by Christina McMorris. You know her as the New York Times bestselling author of Sold on a Monday. It's Oregon, 1888. Mid the subterranean labyrinth of Portland's notorious Shanghai tunnels, a woman awakes in an underground cell, drugged and disguised. Celia soon realizes that she is a shanghaied victim on the verge of being shipped off as forced labor. Although well accustomed to adapting for survival, being half Chinese, passing as white during the era fraught with anti Chinese sentiment, she feels that more of her own fate hangs in her balance, more than her own fate. She pieces together the twisting path that led to her abduction, from serving as a maid for the family of a dubious mayor to becoming entwined in a case of gold miners' massacre. Revelations emerge of a child left in peril. Desperate, Celia must find a way to escape and return to a place where unearthed secrets can prove deadlier than the dark recesses of Chinatown. There we've got the girls of good fortune. And Jean Kwok has this to say about it: a captivating blend of intrigue and heart, a powerful testament to hope. Next, we've got the Martha's Vineyard Beach and Book Club by Martha Hall Kelly, coming on May 27th. 34-year-old Mary Starwood is still grieving after her mother's death as she travels to the storied island of Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts. She's come all the way from California with nothing but a name on a piece of paper. Elizabeth Devereux, the famous but reclusive vineyard painter. When Mary makes it to Miss Devereux's stunning waterfront home under the guise of taking a painting class with her, Mrs. Devereux begins to tell her the story of the Smith sisters who once lived there. The tale unfolds. Mary is shocked to learn that her relationship to this island runs deeper than she thought possible. That's a theme, people. That's a theme. Next, from Kristen Harmel, we've got The Stolen Life of Colette Morceau, which is coming on June 17th. Colette has been stealing jewels for nearly as long as she can remember, following centuries-old code of honor instilled in her by her mother. Her mother's Annabelle: take only from the cruel and unkind and give to those in need. Never was their family tradition more important than 7 decades earlier during the Second World War, when Annabelle and Colette worked side by side in Paris to fund the French resistance. But one night in 1942, it all went wrong. Annabelle was arrested by the Germans, and Colette's 4-year-old sister, Leanne, disappeared in the chaos of the raid, along with an exquisite diamond bracelet sewn into the hem of her nightgown for safekeeping. Soon after, Annabelle was executed, and Liliane's body was found floating in the Seine, but the bracelet was nowhere to be found. 70 years later, Colette has done her best to put her tragic past behind her, but her life begins to unravel when the long missing bracelet suddenly turns up in a museum exhibit in Boston. So we've got The Stolen Life, and Fiona Davis calls this one dazzling. Let's do some thrillers and mysteries. From Harlan Coben, we've got Nobody's Fool. It's coming on March 25th. Sammy Kearse, a young college grad backpacking in Spain with friends, wakes up one morning covered in blood. There's a knife in his hand. Beside him is the lifeless body of his girlfriend, Anna. He doesn't know what happened. He screams to drown out his thoughts, and then he runs. 22 years later, Kearse, now a private investigator, is a new father who's working off his debts by doing low-level surveillance jobs and teaching wannabe sleuths at night school in New York City. One evening, he recognizes a familiar face at the back of the classroom. It's unmistakably Anna. As soon as Kearse makes eye contact with her, she bolts. Kearse, there's no choice. He knows he must find this woman and solve the impossible mystery that has haunted his every waking moment since that terrible day. So we've got Nobody's Fool. Next, we've got Salt Water by Katie Hayes. I'm listening to this right now. It's got 3 different narrators, and it's very, very, very well done. It's March's top library reads pick. It's coming on March 25th. 1992, Sarah Lingate is found dead beyond the cliffs of Capri, leaving behind her 3-year-old daughter, Helen. Despite suspicions that the old money Lingates are involved, Sarah's death is ruled an accident, and every year the family returns to prove it's true. But on the 30th anniversary of Sarah's death, the Lingates arrive at the villa to find a surprise waiting for them: the necklace Sarah was wearing the night she died. Haunted by the specter of that night, the legendary Lingate family unity is pushed to a breaking point, and Helen seizes the opportunity. Enlisting the help of Lorna Moreno, the family assistant, the two plot their escape from Helen's paranoid, insular family. But when Lorna disappears and the investigation into Sarah's death is reopened, Helen has to confront the fact that everyone who's on Capri 30 years ago, remains a suspect. And I actually love that cover. She's the best-selling author of The Cloisters. Next, we've got This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead, coming on March 25th. After the unexpected death of her father, college student Jane Sharp longs for distraction from her grief. She becomes obsessed with true crime, befriending armchair detectives who teach her how to hunt killers from afar. So when news of the shocking details of three college girls in Dothan, Idaho, takes the world by storm and sleuths everywhere race to solve the crimes, Jane and her friends are determined to beat them. The case turns out to be stranger than anyone expected. They begin to suspect that the killer may be smarter and more prolific than any they faced before. Told 1 year after the astounding events that concluded the case, when Jane has finally decided to break her silence about what really happened, she tells the true story of Delphi massacres. And what she has to confess will shock even the most seasoned true crime fans. So we've got This Book Will Bury Me. Next, from Wendy Corsi Staub, we've got The First Girl. It's coming on April 1st. Prom night, Caroline Winterfield walked away from the ruins of an abandoned mansion called Haven Cliff and into the woods, never to be seen again. Only her three best friends know what really happened. The 25th anniversary of that night, Midge, Kelly, and Talia reunite at Haven Cliff, now a gleaming architectural jewel. They aren't alone. Someone's watching. Someone knows what really happened to Caroline and to the man who now lies dead a stone's throw from where she was last seen. Police Detective Midge knows she's dealing with a murder the moment she sees the item clutched in his lifeless hand. Only three other people in the world would grasp its significance. That means Kelly and Talia are either involved or in danger because Caroline is long gone. Or is she? So there we've got The Fourth Girl. Next, from Amity Gage, we've got Heartwood coming on April 1st. The heart of the Maine woods, an experienced Appalachian Trail hiker goes missing. She's 42-year-old Valerie Gillis, who has vanished 200 miles from her final destination. Alone in the wilderness, Valerie pours her thoughts into her fractured poetic letters to her mother. She battles the elements and struggles to keep hoping. At the heart of the investigation is Beverly, the determined Maine State game warden tasked with finding Valerie, who leads the search on the ground. Meanwhile, Lena, a 76-year-old bird watcher in a Connecticut retirement community, becomes an unexpected armchair detective. Roving between these compelling narratives, a puzzle emerges, intensifying the frantic search, as Valerie's disappearance may not have been accidental. Ellen Hildebrand said it is an absolute must-read, and Jennifer Egan said it's impossible to put down. Next, we've got A Maid's Secret from Nita Prose. We know our readers are huge lovers of the Maid series. So Molly Gray's life is about to change in ways she never could have imagined. As the esteemed head maid and special events manager of the Regency Grand Hotel, two things are just around the corner: the taping of a hit antiquities TV show, Hidden Treasures, and her wedding to Juan Manuel, finally. When Molly brings in some old trinkets to be appraised on the show, one item is revealed to be a rare and coveted artifact worth millions. Molly becomes a rags to riches sensation, and a media frenzy swirls as she prepares to sell her priceless treasure. And then on auction day, the treasure suddenly vanishes, and Molly and her friends find themselves at the center of the boldest art theft in recent memory. But the key to this mystery lies in the past, a long-forgotten diary written by Molly's gran. For the first time ever, Molly learns of her grandmother's secrets. As fate would have it, Gran's greatest love was someone that Molly knows quite well. So there we go, The Maid's Secret. Next, from David Baldacci, you've got Strangers in Time, coming on April 15th. Without parents, peerage, or merit, 14-year-old Charlie Matters steals what he needs, living day to day until he's old enough to enlist to fight the Germans. After barely surviving the Blitz, Charlie knows there's no telling when a falling bomb might end his life. 15-year-old Molly Wakefield has just returned to a nearly unrecognizable London. One of the millions of children to have been evacuated to the countryside, Molly's been away from her home for nearly 5 years. But now she's confronted with the devastating reality. Neither of her parents are here. Charlie and Molly find an unexpected ally and protector in Ignatius Oliver and solace at his bookshop, The Bookkeep. But Charlie's escapades in the city have not gone unnoticed, and someone has been following Molly since she returned to London. Ignatius is harboring his own secrets, which have terrible consequences for all of them. So we've got Strangers in Time, which is a complete departure for David. While it's a thriller, he doesn't write historical pieces like this. So I'll be very interested to see how he does it. The plot does sound wonderful. Next, we've got The Dark Maestro by Brendan Slocum. You know him as the author of The Violin Conspiracy that came out a couple of years ago. It's coming on May 13th. Curtis Wilson is a cello prodigy, growing up in Southeast DC projects with a drug dealer for a father. But through determination and talent and loving support of his father's girlfriend, Larissa, Curtis rises to unimagined heights in the classical music world. And then suddenly, his life disintegrates. His father, Zippy, turns state evidence, implicating his old bosses. And now the family must enter the witness protection program if they want to survive. This means Curtis must give up the thing he loves most, sharing his extraordinary music with the world. When Zippy's bosses prove too elusive for law enforcement, Curtis, Zippy, and Larissa realize that their only chance of survival is to take on the criminals themselves. They must create new identities and draw on their unique talents, including Curtis's music ability, to go after the people who want them dead. So there we've got The Dark Maestro. Next from Carl Hyacin, we've got Fever Beach, coming May 13th. The afternoon of September 3rd, the afternoon of September 1st, is water gray and rainy. A male named Dale Figo picked up a hitchhiker on Gus Grissom Boulevard in Tangelos Shores, Florida. The hitchhiker, who reminded Figo of Danny DeVito, asked for a lift to the interstate. Figo said he'd take him there after finishing an errand. And thus begins Fever Beach, with an errand that leads in pure Carl Hyacin style into the depths of Florida's most Floridian, a sun-soaked bastion of right-wing extremism, white power, greed, and corruption. So there you've got Fever Beach. Next, from Alex North, he's best-selling author of The Whisper Man, we've got The Man Made of Smoke. It's coming May 13th. Dan Garvey's life has been haunted by the crime he witnessed as a child, narrowly escaping an encounter with a notorious serial killer. He's dedicated life since then to becoming a criminal profiler, eager to seek justice for innocent victims. So when his father passes away under suspicious circumstances, Dan revisits his small island community, determined to uncover the truth about his death. Is it possible that the monster he remembers from his childhood nightmares has returned after all these years? A lot of returning going on in this presentation. And no one knows what it seems. Nothing's what people seem. Next, we've got The Doorman from Chris Pavoni. Is coming on May 20th. And he is the author of Two Nights in Lisbon, which was a best-on selection of mine. Chicky Diaz is everybody's favorite doorman at the Bohemia, the most famous apartment house in the world, home of celebrities, financiers, and the New York's cultural elite. But gathered in the bowels of the place, the building's almost entirely Black and Hispanic working class staff is taking in the news that just a few miles uptown, a Black man has been killed by the police, leading to a demonstration, a counter demonstration, and a long night of violence across the tinderbox city. Chicky changes into his uniform for the night shift. He finds himself breaking a cardinal rule of the job. Tonight, he'll be carrying a gun, but only hours earlier. But before he knew the pandemonium taking over the city. Chicky knows that there's more going on in his patch of sidewalk in front of the Bohemia than anybody is aware of. So there we've got The Doorman, and it's really interesting because Chris lives in the Dakota. Talk about a hotel with a door, a famous apartment house with a doorman. There you go. John Grisham has said it's a nearly perfect blend of clever plotting with good social commentary, irresistible setting, truly memorable characters, and old-fashioned page-turning fun. There you go. Next, from Linwood Barclay, we've got a departure from him as well. This is more of like a horror novel called Whistle. People who know Linwood and follow him on social media know that he is obsessed with his train setup that he has in his house. In fact, he has this huge setup. He keeps adding to it, and he has whole villages and people and trains. And it's really been fun to watch him grow this over the year and be so committed to having such a beautiful display. So let's go what happens here. Annie Blunt has had an unimaginably terrible year. First, her husband was killed in a tragic hit-and-run accident. One of her children's books she's built her writing and illustrating career on ignited a major scandal. So, desperate for a fresh start, she moves with her son Charlie to a charming small town in upstate New York where they can begin to heal. But Anna's year is about to get worse. Bored and lonely in their isolated new surroundings, Charlie is thrilled when he finds a forgotten train set in a locked shed on their property. But there's something unsettling about his new toy. Strange sounds wake Amy in the night, and she could swear she hears a train. But there isn't any active track for miles, and bizarre things begin happening in the neighborhood. And worse, Annie can't seem to stop drawing a disturbing new character that has no place in a children's book. So there we've got Whistle, and Stephen King is calling it terrific. Next, from Robert Dugoni, we've got A Dead Draw coming on May 27th. Back with the Tracy Crosswhite series. Tracy is the one to lose her cool until her interrogation of the taunting and malicious Eric Schmidt, a suspect in two cold case killings. Schmidt also has unnerving ties to a monster who murdered Tracy's sister, stirring memories of the crime that shaped Tracy's life. After a critical mistake during a shooting exercise, Tracy breaks. Haunted by nightmares and flashbacks, she heads to her hometown of Cedar Grove to refocus. Just a peaceful getaway with her husband, her daughter, and their nanny at their weekend house. But Tracy's sleepless nights are only the beginning. A legal glitch has allowed Schmidt to go free, and Tracy has every reason to fear that he's followed her. Forced in a twisted game of cat and mouse, Tracy must draw on all her training, wits, and strength to defeat a master criminal before he takes away everyone that Tracy loves. There we've got A Dead Draw. Next, from Stephen King, we have Never Flinch coming on May 27th. When the Buckeye City Police Department receives a disturbing letter from a person threatening to kill 13 innocents and one guilty in an act of atonement for the needless death of an innocent man, Detective Izzy Janes has no idea what to think. Are 14 citizens about to be slaughtered in an unhinged act of retribution? As the investigation unfolds, Izzy realizes that the letter writer is deadly serious, and she turned to her friend Holly Gibney for help. Meanwhile, controversial and outspoken women's rights activist Katie McKay is embarking on a multi-city lecture tour. Someone who vehemently opposes Kate's message of female empowerment is targeting her and disrupting her events. First, no one's hurt, but the stalker grows bolder, and Holly's hired to be Kate's bodyguard, challenging task with a headstrong employer and a determined adversary, driven by wrath and his belief in his own righteousness. So there you've got Never Flinch. Next, from The First Gentleman is coming from Bill Clinton and James Patterson, two people who enjoy writing together. Its tagline is America has a powerful new president, and her husband's on trial for murder. President of the United States is up for re-election. Her husband is on trial for murder. Is the first gentleman a killer? A pair of brilliant investigative journalists set out to answer that burning question about the NFL star turned political spouse. The First Gentleman has all the twists and turns and the authenticity that one expects from number one best-selling authors of The President is Missing and The President's Daughter. So there you go, The First Gentleman. Next, from Julie Clark, we've got The Ghost Writer. And Ashley Elston is saying this is expertly plotted and exquisitely twisted. Coming on June 3rd. June 1975, the Taylor family shatters in a single night when two teenage siblings are found dead in their own home. The only surviving sibling, Vincent, never shakes the whispers and accusations that he was the one who killed them. Decades later, the legend only grows as his career as a horror writer skyrockets. Ghostwriter Olivia Dumont spends her entire professional life hiding the fact that she's the only child of Vincent Taylor. Now on the brink of financial ruin, she's offered a job to ghostwrite her father's last book. What she doesn't know, though, is that this project is another one of his lies, because it's not another horror story he wants her to write. After 50 years of silence, Vincent Taylor is finally ready to talk about what really happened that night in 1975. From S.A. Cosby, oh my gosh, this is an author of All the Sinners Bleed, somebody who everybody is waiting for this book to come out. It's coming on June 10th. When the eldest son, Roman Carruthers, is summoned home after his father's car accident, he finds his younger brother Dante in debt to dangerous criminals and his sister Nevia exhausted from holding the family and the family business together. Nevia and their father, who run the Carruthers crematorium in the rundown central Virginia home of Jefferson Run, see death up close every day. But mortality draws even closer when it becomes clear that the crash that landed their father in a coma was no accident, and Dante's recklessness has placed him in real danger. Roman, a financial whiz with a head for numbers and a talent for making his clients rich, has some money to help buy his brother out of trouble. But in his work with the wannabe tough guys, he's forgotten they're real gangsters out there. As his bargaining chips go up in smoke, Roman realizes that he has only one thing left to offer to save his brother himself and his own particular set of skills. There we've got King of Ashes. Next, from Riley Sager, best-selling author of The Only One Left, we've got With a Vengeance. In 1942, 6 people destroyed Anna Matheson's family. 12 years later, she's ready for retribution. Under false pretenses, Anna has lured those responsible for her father's downfall onto a luxury train from Philadelphia to Chicago, an overnight journey of 13 hours. Her goal? Confront the people who have wronged her, get them to confess their crimes, and deliver them into the hands of authorities waiting at the end of the line. But Anna's plan is quickly derailed itself by the murder of one of the passengers. And as the train barrels through the night, it becomes clear someone else is on board enacting their own form of revenge, and they won't stop until everyone else is dead. So there you go, With a Vengeance. From Liv Constantine, the two-sister writing team, we've got Don't Open Your Eyes. Annabelle Reynolds has everything she's ever wanted. So why is she suddenly plagued by disturbing dreams of a future where she hates her husband and her daughter's lives are at risk? When details from her dreams, details she couldn't possibly have predicted, begin to materialize, she realizes they aren't just dreams, but rather premonition of a terrifying future. They all point to a singular choice, an unknown moment that holds Annabelle's life in the balance. Then Annabelle has a dream that her daughter Scarlet is in immediate danger. Someone wants Scarlet dead, and Annabelle has no idea who or why. Suddenly, every choice she makes is fraught with peril, with no inkling of which move could bring this terrifying vision to life. As Annabelle's present life starts to collide with the future of her dreams, she wrestles with how much control she really has over her destiny and whether she can change what is meant to be. Next, we've got Fox from Joyce Carol Oates coming on the 17th of June. Who's Francis Fox? A charming English teacher new to the idyllic Langhorne Academy, Fox beguiles many of his students, their parents, and his colleagues at the elite boarding school, while leaving others wondering where he came from and why his biography is so enigmatic. When the two brothers discover Fox's car half submerged in a pond in a local nature preserve and parts of an unidentified body strewn about the nearby woods, the entire community, including Detective Horace Slender and his deputy, begin asking disturbing questions about Francis Fox and who he might really be. Next, we've got Murder Takes a Vacation from Laura Lippman, which is coming on June 17th. 8 days, 7 nights, 1 dead body. Mrs. Blossom has a knack for blending into the background, which was an asset during her days assisting private investigator Tess Monahan. But when she finds a winning lottery ticket in a parking lot, everything changes. She's determined to see the world that sometimes she feels is passing her by. Mrs. Blossom booked her cruise through France on the MS Solitaire. She did not expect to meet Alan on her transatlantic flight. He's the first man who has sparked something inside her since her beloved husband passed. She also didn't expect Alan to be found dead 24 hours later in Paris, a city he wasn't supposed to be in. Now Mrs. Blossom doesn't know who to trust on board the ship. So there's Murder Takes a Vacation. Do some memoirs, biographies, and other nonfiction. I'll kick it off with When the Going Was Good by Graydon Carter. It's coming on March 25th. The Styles of the Times had a big piece on this book over the weekend. When Graydon Carter was offered the editorship of Vanity Fair in 1992, he knew he faced an uphill battle, how to make the esteemed and long-established magazine his own, and not only was confronted by a staff they perceived to be loyal to the previous regime, Tina Brown, he arrived with only a few years after launching Spy magazine, which gloried in skewering the celebrated and the powerful, the very people that Vanity Fair venerated. With curiosity, fearlessness, and a love of recent history and glamour that would come to define his storied career in magazines, Carter succeeded in endearing himself to his editors, contributors, and readers, as well as many of the faces that would come to appear on the pages of Vanity Fair. This is Carter's lively recounting of how he made his mark as one of the most talented editors in the business. Graydon left the business in 2017, and he said the going was good, ended like around that time. I say it ended in 2007 and 8 when the market crashed, and being at a magazine was really, really tumultuous for the next years. I was at Condé Nast when he was there, and I read this already. A very, very interesting story. Next, we've got Yoko from David Sheff, which is coming on March 25th. John Lennon once described Yoko Ono as the world's most famous unknown artist. Everyone knows her name, but no one knows what she does. She's only been important to history insofar as she impacted Lennon. Throughout her life, Yoko has been a a curiosity, and often a villain, an inscrutable seductress, a manipulating con artist, and a caterwauling fraud. The Lennon Beatles saga is one of the greatest stories ever told, but Yoko's part has been missing, hidden in the Beatles' formidable shadow, further obscured by flagrant misogyny and racism. This is definitive biography of Yoko Ono's will change that. In this book, Yoko Ono takes center stage. Next, we've got Boat Baby from Vicky Nygren, which is coming on April 1st. Starting in 1975, Vietnam's boat people, desperate families seeking freedom, fled by the communist government and violence in their country any way they could, usually by boat across the South China Sea. Vicky and her family were among them. Attacked at sea by pirates before reaching a refugee camp in Malaysia, Nikki's family survived on rations and waited months until they were sponsored to go to America. But deciding to leave and start a new life in a new country is half the story. Figuring out how to be American is the other. Boat Baby is Vicky's memoir of growing up in America with unconventional Vietnamese parents who didn't always know how to bridge the cultural gaps. And she is the NBC News anchor and correspondent. The 10 by E.A. Hanks, coming on April 15th. Their trusted loaded up minivan, Minnie, E.A. Hanks, follows the same route as a long ago road trip with her mother in an attempt to better understand the complicated woman who gave her life. Along the way, as she follows her mother's diaries and her own recollections of the route, she begins to uncover secrets, some unexpectedly wonderful, others darker and more violent than she ever imagined, that bring more questions than answers. Reckoning on the past, the present, her memories, and herself, Hanks brings us along a beautiful voyage towards understanding how the stories we tell about the places we're from ultimately becomes the stories we tell the people we are. It's a memory of family and the open road, and she is the daughter of Tom Hanks from his first marriage. And this is Every Mile is a Revelation, said Adrienne Bador, and we know that she wrote her memoir, Wild Game. Next, we've got Blood in the Water by Casey Sherman coming on April 8th. When Nathan Carman, a young man with a complicated past, is miraculously rescued from a lifeboat bobbing in the unforgiving North Atlantic, questions swirl about the fate of his mother, who's presumed to have drowned when their fishing boat sank. Nathan's in remarkable great shape for being lost at sea for a week, and his account of exactly what happened on there on the waves raises questions from family members and law enforcement. Nathan's story of a fishing trip gone awry doesn't quite add up, and suspicions mount. The mysterious murder of Nathan's multimillionaire grandfather a few years earlier had made Nathan's mother an extremely wealthy woman. With a $7 million fortune at stake, did Nathaniel commit the ultimate betrayal? Was there more to this tragic tale than meets the eye? I met Casey a couple of years ago. He really loves writing about true crime. And when he sits there and starts spinning a story to you, you feel like you're there. So there we've got Blood in the Water. Next, we've got the Book of Alchemy by Sulika Jwood. And she was an author that was at a luncheon that we were at on April 22nd. From the time she was young, Sulika has kept a journal. She used it to mark life's biggest occasions and to weather its most ferocious storms. Journaling has buoyed her through illness, heartbreak, and the deepest uncertainty. And she's not alone. For so many people, keeping a journal is an essential tool for navigating both the personal peaks and valleys and the collective challenges of modern life. More than ever, we need a space for puzzling through. In this book, Sulika explores the art of journaling and shares everything she's learned about how this life-altering practice can help us tap into that mystical trait that exists in every human creativity. Creativity. She's gathered wisdom from 100 writers, artists, and thinkers in the form of essays and writing prompts. and their insights invite us to inhabit a more inspired life. And what's really interesting about this is she really went out and got pieces from these people. And we, at this lunch, she described wide range of people that she had spoken with. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Between Two Kingdoms. And the story of she and her husband's life is on, or a year in their life, is on Netflix, and it is called, I think, American Symphony. I'm sure it's called American Symphony. It was really good. I've actually watched it twice. Next, we've got Notes to John by Joan Didion, coming on April 22nd. It's kind of a controversial sounding book to me. Let me tell you why. November 1999, Joan Didion began seeing a psychiatrist because, as she wrote to a friend, her family had a few rough years. She described the sessions in a journal she created for her husband, John Gregory Dunn. For several months, Didion recorded conversations with the psychiatrist in meticulous detail. The initial sessions focused on alcoholism, adoption, depression, anxiety, guilt, and the heartbreaking complexities of her relationship with her daughter, Quintana. The subject evolved to include her work, which she was finding difficult to maintain for sustainable periods. There were discussions about her own childhood and the question of legacy, or as she put it, what it's been worth. And the analysis would continue for more than a decade. My question is, if I have my memoirs around, do I want somebody to be seeing them? Were these meant to be published? So that's my take on it. But Joan Didion, Notes to John. Next, from Jeremy Renner, we've got My Next Breath. It's on sale on April 29th. Two-time Oscar nominee Jeremy Renner was the second most Googled person in 2023, and not for his impressive filmography. On New Year's Day 2023, a 14,000-pound snowplow crushed him. Somehow able to keep breathing for more than a half an hour, he was subsequently rushed to the ICU, after which he would face multiple surgeries and months of painful rehabilitation. In My Next Breath, he writes in blistering detail about his accident and the aftermath. His retelling is not merely a gruesome account of what happened to him. It's a call to action and a forged companionship between reader and author as he recounts his recovery journey and reflects on the impact of his suffering. So there's My Next Breath. And believe me, if you see the footage of what happened that day, you do not forget it. Next, we've got Show Don't Tell by Christine Gaspari. It is coming on April 29th. For Christine and generations of young women in her small hometown, Mrs. Courthouse wasn't just a high school English teacher. She offered a window into a bigger world. Her focus on her students means she almost never learned about her. And now, before making a career pivot into teaching, she marched on. Wait a second, I'm sorry. Her focus on her students means that most never learned about her. How, before making a career pivot into teaching, she marched on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King, attended JFK's inauguration, and built a career as a business leader when women couldn't get open finance accounts in their own name. Now a celebrated writer herself, Christine reunites with her beloved teacher just as Mrs. Courthouse is newly retired, widowed, and diagnosed with advanced breast cancer. As the two women reflect on their intertwined journeys over the past 30 years, Mrs. Courthouse's enduring insight on self-determination, spirituality, and the teaching profession takes on deeper meaning. And we are going to have a spring reading giveaway for this book as well. Next, from Dave Barry, Class Clown. We all know he is. May 13th, this one's coming. So how does the son of a Presbyterian minister end up winning a Pulitzer Prize for writing a wildly inaccurate newspaper column read by millions of people? In Class Clown, Dave Barry takes us on a hilarious ride, and it will be hilarious. Starting with a childhood largely spent throwing rocks for entertainment, there was no internet, and preparing for nuclear war by hiding under a classroom desk. I remember that too. Boy, were we misguided. And literally getting elected class clown in high school. We went to college where, as an English major, he read snippets of great literature when he was not busy playing in a rock band. It was the 60s. So the subtitle is How I Went 77 Years Without Growing Up. Memoirs, a Professional Wise Ass. Yep, I can see it exactly. I also can see him as a child. We've got Maya Blue by Brenda Coffey, which is coming on May 20th. At 21, Brenda surrendered herself to her marriage and became a woman who would do almost anything her charismatic and powerful older husband, Phil Ray, wanted, regardless of whether it was dangerous, adventurous, sexual, illegal. She wanted to be the one woman he couldn't live without. Brenda and Philip's life together was a fairy tale until it wasn't, until Philip, the founder of two high-profile, groundbreaking public companies, began making real cocaine in their basement and became addicted. Until the big six tobacco companies threatened their wives for creating the first smokeless cigarette. Brenda coined the term vape and vaping, and brutal Guatemalan military commandos forced her into the jungle at gunpoint. Yep, this is a memoir of survival. And survival, it's going to be how is she going to do it? These are my early 2025 bets on selections, books I'm betting you'll love. It's The Note by Alistair Burke, The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis, Lisa Genova's More or Less Maddie, Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, What Happened to the McCraes by Tracy Wang, Michelle Horton's Dear Sister, Scott Turo's Presumed Guilty, Good Dirt by Charmaine Wilkerson, The Oligarch's Daughter by Joseph Finder, Queens of Crime by Marie Benedict, and Seeking Shelter by Jeff Hobbs. And two to come up are Broken Country, which I just learned has hit the New York Times list at number 3 for a second week in a row, which is amazing. And The Lost Baker of Vienna, which I am absolutely crazy about by Sharon Kurtzman, that will be out in August. So books to take note of if you're looking for something to read that I've sort of loved. Not sort of, I've loved it. Here are most recent Talk To videos and podcasts. Broken Country, Claire Leslie Hall, Marie Benedict on The Queens of Crime, Charmaine on Good Dirt, and Joseph Finder on The Oligarch's Daughter. And okay, I've got a contest running right now for Maya Blue on the site. If you go to Bookreporter and you want to enter this contest, got to say that you're going to be able to give us feedback about the book and be able to, give us something that you want to share after you've read it. One of 25 copies are being given away. You have till Friday at noon, this Friday at noon, to enter. So after this, if you want to go out to Bookreporter, it's a contest to enter. Also, if these are our spring reading titles, the next contest will be up on March 25th at noon, and we will be giving away The Fourth Girl by Wendy Corsi Staub. So keep your eyes peeled for that contest. Also, I don't know how many of you know about our word of mouth contest on Bookreporter, where you tell us what you've read, you write down the books you've read, and you can be entered to win 2 books. And here we've got Broken Country, which I'm wild about, and The Stories She Left Behind, Patty Callahan Henry, which is getting tons of raves. So you have until March 28th, a week from Friday, to just tell us what you're reading and rate it. And then from there, you're entered. You tell us a little line about your book. You tell us why you think that people would want to read it. And you're entered to win both of these titles. Next Wednesday night, we have a guest. Anna Quinlan will be joining us to discuss After Annie, a New York Times bestseller that is now available in paperback. So it's the same time as this today. It's Wednesday, March 26th at 8 p.m. And sign up is available on both Bookreporter and Reading Group Guides. And our next Bookaccino Live book preview afternoon event will be books releasing between April 8th and May 6th, and a peek ahead of June. And there will be many different books than what you just saw today. And sign up is available for that on readinggroupguides.com.